Hello, I'm going to talk about my job at BCTC for the My Performance Management assignment. I am an admissions officer at BCTC, and my main tasks are to process applications and documents, including transcripts and letters of good standing. I also communicate with all the students with the last name R through Z to help them with the admissions process. I will make a note that I just started this job in November of 2017, so I haven't been through the performance appraisal process yet. My performance appraisal is actually tomorrow, so I have heard a little bit about it recently from my supervisor. So a lot of what I'm going to discuss is really information I've learned over these last few weeks from my supervisor. So for the performance management process, step 1 is for leaders to set organization, division, and departmental goals. So the main goal of BCTC and probably any college is to attract and retain students and keep enrollment up. So for admissions, really the goal is to, make it an easy and quick process for students to get enrolled. So this drops down to me where it's my responsibility and I have the goal to process applications quick and make sure that I'm communicating with students the right amount. So that kind of relates to the upper goal. Step 2 is for managers and employees to set objectives and discuss behavioral expectations. So I will say whenever I started this job in November, I was really never given any clear objectives or expectations about how many applications to process in a certain amount of time. So really I've learned that my objective at this point is really to just learn the job and keep training and to improve on my accuracy of processing. Step 3 is for managers and employees to hold ongoing performance discussions. So my supervisor is really great at consistently providing feedback and kind of getting a feel of where we're at with application processing. We also hold meetings for just admissions officers every other week, so that kind of gives us a chance to talk about feedback and for us to ask questions about expectations as well. Step 4 is for employees to provide input on own perceptions of performance. So I don't really relate to this one a whole lot because I haven't really gotten a chance to kind of make my own goals for this performance appraisal. We did have kind of a pre-performance appraisal review where my manager, she kind of created 2 goals for us and we commented on those goals. There's not really been much of this is what I want to achieve by this time, by the next performance appraisal, so it would be kind of nice to have something like that involved in the performance appraisal process at BCTC. So step 5 is for knowledgeable rating sources to provide input on employee performance. So as far as I know, it's just my manager, rating my performance. Her manager's not really giving any input, and there's not really anybody else giving any input. Which is kind of odd because, she's in a completely different office and she's not really around that much. So it would be good to kind of have maybe coworker input to be involved in the performance appraisal process. That may be kind of useful and something for them to think about in the future. Step 6 is for managers to rate performance. Since this is my first performance appraisal tomorrow, I'm not really sure exactly what the dimensions are and how it all works. But I did ask my supervisor the scale and, the options. So the options are exceeds expectations, meets expectations, and needs improvement. And she did say that there's 5 different dimensions, and it seems to me like they're probably mostly behavioral dimensions and not really, how many applications did you get processed in this amount of time. So step 7 is for managers and employees to hold formal review sessions. Tomorrow, like I said, is my formal review session, so that will be interesting. She did say to all of us not to worry because if there were any issues or negative behaviors, she would have informed us previously, like right after they happened. So I'm not really too worried about that. Step 8 is for HR decisions to be made, such as pay, promotions, and training. There's not really, this review isn't really, there's not going to be really any kind of decisions made about pay or promotions, because as you know, like, education has been hit really hard, so there's not really going to be any extra money for any pay raises or promotions to go on. So that's unfortunate, but possibly in the future they could create a performance appraisal that, you know, kind of like sets those values that can be used for, you know, like comparison and administrative purposes like that. So BCTC did have about 5 goals. I'm not going to discuss all of them, just the ones that relate to my specific performance goals. So the first goal is increasing student access and success. And the second one is building resources for an effective and sustainable college. So these are really broad goals, but that's kind of how it should be because it's the organization's goals. So I am going to do my best to kind of like tie in my goals with the organization goals. So the first goal I have is to contact all students by the end of the same week who haven't turned in required documents effective immediately. So we get a query and we process the applications, and you know, some students don't automatically have transcripts and letters of good standing, test scores all submitted. So it would be great to have them, to have a goal of making sure that these students are aware of submitting these documents. This relates to increasing student success and access because this is like the first step of getting into college, and this is the first way to make them succeed in the whole process of getting into college and getting through college. My second goal is to create an email postcard to send to all students who have been accepted by the end of the year, as in create a postcard by the end of the year. I think this would be super valuable because students will come in and they'll get accepted, you know, and we have to send them a letter in the mail, and they're kind of disappointed because they really want an email. So this relates to building resources for an effective and sustainable college, because it is somewhat of a resource, you know, that we can use to kind of like expand the college and make it more effective. Even if it's just a little thing like a postcard, it's still kind of like a big deal.